Hi guys, Ronnie here and welcome to the workshop. A couple of months ago I brought you the first look at the new Wahoo Kickr Rollr indoor trainer, or well, not strictly an indoor trainer. And there have been many mixed reviews about that, and there are many reviews on the internet stating all kinds of things about it. I've been using it a lot for the past couple of months, and as I said, not just for the regular use cases, and it has proven to be an extremely efficient and useful tool in my arsenal regarding all things from race warm-ups to bike fits to just working on your bike. So today I'm going to talk you through a little bit more about that, so let's get into it. Okay, so first a quick rundown of what the Kickr Rollr actually is. So the hint is in the name already. It is a pair of rollers that your rear wheel goes into and then propels them. But it's not just a simple roller, it's actually smart. As you can see, I have it plugged in right here. It does have a flywheel, not a huge one, but there is one. So you get a nice road feel on there. And it has variable resistance. Some people were skeptical about the fact that it doesn't measure power. Well, if you have the wheel on it, you're not driving it directly, then it's not really possible to measure power accurately without a separate power meter. So I think that's kind of understandable. It's better to have no measurement than some wonky measurements that some other trainers have, because they're pointless anyway. I also got some questions regarding the resistance when it's not plugged in. Well, a lot of that will depend on the rolling resistance of your tire and the gear ratio. I used it for my warm-ups, which are, well, up to 300 watts really, up to FTP or in that region, and it has been perfectly fine. However, if you want more resistance on that without the unit being plugged in, then it's probably not going to work unless you have an enormous gear on your bike, which can happen on a time trial bike, but yeah, it's not that common. Then if you go further down the unit, of course there's this sliding connecting bar that connects the front triangle basically. This is a structure that enables you to clamp on your front wheel, and you do that by rotating this little dial here. So it's pretty secure, extremely easy to use. And this is actually the first huge advantage in my book when it comes to race warm-ups, because you don't really need to do anything to your bike. It takes around 5 seconds to put it on or take it off, which, well, if you talk about an effective warm-up, then the best way to do that is to finish as late or, well, as close to your race start as possible, and this enables you to do that without any stress. Nowadays even the time trial bikes are equipped with disc brakes, and with the regular direct drive trainer you would have to remove the rear wheel, which is very inconvenient before the start. Previously I was using the feedback omnium, which clamps onto the fork, so for that you have to remove the front wheel. A lot less of a hassle, but still with disc brakes you can mess it up. You can accidentally pull on the brake lever with the rotor not being in there and misalign stuff. So yeah, this is really just the best way for a race warm-up. The downside to it is that, as you can see, it's pretty huge. So it's not so stowable, not nearly as stowable as the feedback omnium. So yeah, that's a bit inconvenient, and it's also quite heavy. However, I found a way around that. If you remove the two connecting bolts from here, then you can actually just split the trainer like it actually comes in a box, like they ship it, and that way it's fairly easy to stow away in the back of a reasonably sized passenger car. Okay, so the second thing, and the second probably pretty obvious use, is indoor training for this unit. How does that work? Well, it's quite a bit different to a regular Kickr, for example. But I came to really like this trainer for, well, just training purposes also, even though I was not planning to. So a couple of advantages compared to the regular Kickr. For me, well, I try to minimize my time spent training indoors because I just prefer to do it the old-fashioned way. And for that, when I do on some occasions stay indoors, then it really is a big convenience factor to just, well, slide the bike in, clamp it down, and off you go. So that's one thing. Again, you don't need to remove anything from your bike. The second thing in my book is that because, and this is fairly subjective, but since your rear wheel is not clamped, it kind of moves around, and because of that I find that the ride is a bit more enjoyable, a bit more close to riding outdoors, and thus I find that the time is rolling away quite a bit quicker than you would get with a fixed direct drive trainer. So that's a big plus in my book. Actually, once after my crash this year, I didn't want to go outside, so I did my 4-hour endurance ride on this, and it was perfectly fine. The gradient simulation in Zwift is good, it works, it picks up quickly, although the latest update I find with Zwift is a bit buggy, so you get really unrealistic changes in gradient, but I'm sure that's down to the software and they'll fix that. So aside from that, pretty good. Regarding erg mode, I haven't really tried that. However, people report that it's working just fine as well. As I said, I try to minimize training indoors, and with that I try to not do intervals indoors at all. And actually I haven't done this a single time this year, just because outside is more efficient for that. So yeah, that's not the use case I'm hoping for. Probably the only limitation I can see is in Zwift racing, because it doesn't have as much resistance to push against when going for a sprint, for example. So in that way it might fail, so you might not get the result that you want. But that's a pretty extreme scenario, and yeah, it's just not for that. For 99% of regular use, I would say it's perfectly fine, and in fact I find it better than a regular trainer, to be absolutely honest. People also ask me about tire wear. Well, the thing is actually that these are smooth aluminum rollers with a hard coated surface, so I think actually if you consider the surfaces that you ride outside on, I think the wear on your tire might actually be less than that. So yeah, and it's not contacted on one point but two, so that kind of spreads out the load. Should provide less shearing on the rubber. I'm not an expert on tribology of tires, but yeah, I haven't really found anything suspicious or extremely worrying in that regard, even after longer rides. So yeah, for me that's not really a cause for concern. So that's pretty much how it performs in indoor training. Okay, and finally, for the other less obvious use cases for this trainer. So as you can see, this is my time trial bike in there, and with time trial bikes you do get regulations that you need to comply with regarding your position. Sometimes this can be pretty tricky to measure, but here comes the Kickr Rollr. So the first thing that's great about this is that the bike is extremely stable, because yeah, the front wheel is clamped down, the rear wheel sits nicely and stably on the rollers, so it's an ideal platform for measurements. Also, the bike is completely level when you put it on there, and combined with this little laser measuring device, or level device I should say, I can measure up the position of any time trial bike and check if it fits within the UCI regulations. So this is a pretty specific use case for me, but it's something that I do often for my bikes and for my clients' bikes. So it's really extremely helpful. This little combination of tools kind of substitutes the use of a UCI jig. So that's one thing that I use it for. The second thing derived from this is bike fits, and that's well, bike fits on your own bike if you have it already, of course. Why is this device good for that? Well, firstly, because it's a roller, I find that people tend to pedal more naturally, more closer to an actual on-road pedal strike, so it makes for an easier job when it comes to fitting, because you can see the pedaling action a little bit more and it's quite clear. The second thing is that because it's driven from the rear wheel and it's adjustable both in this direction and in this direction, it fits any bike with any drivetrain, with any number of gears, with any tire on, any wheel on, disc brake, rim brake. It just fits any bike without the need to adapt anything. So if I were to use a direct drive trainer, I would have to change cassettes, change axles, change adapters. With this, not really the case. And when it comes to fitting the bike, I can just leave it on there. And again, the front wheel is clamped, so I can work on the cockpit. It's solid and it doesn't go anywhere. And the rear of the bike just stays put. So it's also a nice work stand actually, because you can work on a bike with everything in place. You can work on the cockpit, adjustments, saddle, everything. You can then measure things up. So yeah, that's just extremely convenient. And if you want to simulate different kinds of load, then you can just do it via erg mode through the Wahoo app. Happy days. Also, because the bike is situated here and the trainer is situated here, I can pack away this stuff and work conveniently by placing my tools here, and then if the client needs some cooling, then I can just put on the fan. So really ideal workplace for bike fitting and adjustments of the position. Then of course I can also judge helmet fits, etc. based on that. So this is the use that I was not planning to use the roller for, but I find that this probably is the biggest part actually of its work. So really happy with that. Of course, that's pretty niche and pretty specific to whether you're actually working on bikes or not, but for me it's a huge plus. So to sum it up, having these three things combined into one unit makes it one of my favorite devices that I got this year, so I'm really happy with that. Some people were complaining about the price, and I have to agree it's a bit steep, but with all these things covered for me by one unit, for me at least, I can say that it's fully justified. So if you have similar needs, or you can find yourself in one or more of these uses, then I think the Kickr Rollr device is for you. If you do train regularly indoors with a lot of intervals, racing, etc., then it's probably not your device of choice. For everything else, I think it's really damn good. So that's the Kickr Rollr, and that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.